Are you looking to leverage the latest and best ideas to grow your advisory business from the best minds in the industry? Join us every Wednesday at noon Pacific for our speaker series, featuring dynamic guests sharing real strategies for real results. Brought to you by The Best Notary, where we help estate planning attorneys grow their business with less stress and more success.
All right, well, let's get into it. Welcome, everyone, to our presentation today. We'll be talking about financial therapy, and Elana is going to be our speaker. And Elana is pretty amazing. I met her through Pepsi, which is the Peninsula Estate Planning Council. Nicole here is also one of my clients and also is a board member at the Peninsula Estate Planning Council. I think you arranged for her to be the speaker because you're the speaker chair.
Yeah, and it was fortuitous and fantastic, and I'm super excited to hear her speak again.
Lovely, lovely. What are you guys seeing on my screen? Are you guys seeing the picture of Elana at the moment?
That's good.
The photo of you, right? Not my chat GPT, correct?
Nope.
Just making sure. Okay.
Photo of me and my website. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So Elana, her journey began her journey with money began early. Growing up with financial uncertainty, she took control by earning and investing her own money. At 14, she started babysitting, saving diligently, and investing in mutual funds, realizing that financial independence meant having choices. Her academic path led her to Cornell University, where her father was a professor of landscape architecture. Thanks to a tuition discount, she was able to attend, but she still worked multiple jobs to cover expenses. During a scholarship year in Israel, Elana developed a money policy, a structured approach to saving, spending, and giving, which she and her future husband embraced. This financial discipline later provided security through life's unexpected changes. Initially, believing financial literacy was a second nature, she didn't recognize a unique gift until a career counselor's insight led her to earn a certificate in personal financial planning from UC Berkeley and complete her CFP designation at Charles Schwab. Traditional financial planning felt incomplete. Numbers alone didn't capture the deep emotional ties people have with money. Seeking a holistic approach, Elana studied financial life planning at Golden Gate University and trained with leading experts in financial psychology. Her expertise has been featured in the Washington Post, the Seattle Times, Young Finance, Go Banking Rates, The Cut, Real Simple, Women's World, NerdWallet, and other publications, where she explores the subconscious beliefs and emotions that shape financial behavior. Now, as a financial therapist, she blends practical strategies with emotional insight, helping clients rewrite their financial narratives and build meaningful legacies. And with that, I am going to let Elana take the stage and set us up for what's going to be, I'm sure, a riveting discussion about financial therapy.
Wow. Thank you. Wow. What a wonderful introduction. Thank you, Eli. It all sounds so different put together that way. Each thing just sort of one thing leads to the other. But thank you so much. And thank you for this opportunity to speak today. I'm really honored to be here and to share the knowledge. And I want this to be interactive. So I want questions, as we go through, and I would like to create this presentation to really do what you're most interested in. I do know that Nicole did see part of the presentation before, so I hope she's okay with that. But I know people who are listening to it afterward will probably want to see the slides also. So Nicole, you're going to put up with a little bit of repetition, but we also want to take it different directions. So I think I'm going to share my screen, share some slides, and jump right in. So can you guys see my screen here? A little thumbs up. You can. Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. So, unlocking. Oh, thank you, Eli. Unlocking deeper client connections with financial therapy is what want to talk to you each about today. And oh, there we go. You already heard about my background from Eli, but since you're recording it for the recording purposes, I'll just briefly say I have a whole background in different things, but I've studied and learned with top people to become a financial therapist because I really feel that the emotional side of money is the part that I feel compelled to help clients with. And I also tying in something I want to bring in here, the three designations I want to mention is I'm a certified financial therapist. There are only about 100 of us that exist. I'm a certified financial planner, although I don't do planning. I simply do financial therapy, and I use that knowledge to help my clients make better decisions. And I'm a certified grief educator, and I got that designation last fall because I saw the impact that grief has on people with their finances, and I'll talk more about that as we go through here. So what I thought this presentation, the slides will go into are like why financial therapy, myths and facts about financial therapy, and then I've placed case studies and things like that. But Eli and I were chatting before, and we were talking about going to some other directions too. So what I thought I'll do is I'll start by telling you a bit about financial therapy, and then maybe Eli and I'll chat a little bit, and we'll go back and forth to keep it a little more dynamic because that's more fun. If you have any questions, feel free to either write them in the chat or we'll pause and at that point to kind of chime in. So big question. Nicole might know the answer, but 90%, like what is important about the 90% number? Anyone, you actually can just share it if you want those who know it, but if anyone wants to share. Eli, you going for it?
Yeah, I think 90% of decisions about money are emotional.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah. And a lot of people, sometimes I've talked to people who are, stop her share, who are engineers, who are, other people like, oh, no, that's not true. But then when you actually talk about it and you realize you're like, no, actually it is. It is really the 90% of financial decisions are emotional. And we see that with our clients too, as you go into different things. Why does choosing one thing over another with what they're choosing as they go through? So Daniel Kahneman says, we make financial decisions based 90% on emotion and only 10% on logic. And I think it's also limitations. I mean, you can only get so much money for things. Even if you wanted to have this emotionally, you wanted some gigantic house, you might not qualify for the loan or your different other things that come in those pieces there. The other piece that becomes really important as we look at our relationship with money and our clients' relationship with money is the fact that people get stuck. 80% of the time when people intend to make a financial decision, they don't. And I think people see that all the time with estate plans that are not complete, financial plans that are not complete. And each of you may even have in your lives something where you're like, oh yeah, I didn't get to whatever. Here, I'll just throw one of mine in. For the longest time, we did not have our house in the trust. And it was a real pain in the butt to do it. My husband took care of it, and kudos to my husband. He's amazing. But it was multiple things doing that. That was one of that 80%. That's a financial decision we hadn't gotten to. And it's hard because people get stuck around who to trust, what to do. And I help people with that 80%. And it's really important too to understand that when people are not making a financial decision, they're often triggered. There's something that like in their childhood, or they may be telling themselves negative thoughts. In a practice called IFS, Internal Family Systems, the idea is we have these different thoughts in our mind, parts in our mind, and a lot of that can be inner critic work coming in and saying, you didn't figure out how to get your house in the trust. Well, and you can insert. Usually, it's not a positive word that people put in there for whatever they haven't gotten, or you haven't gotten to doing whatever, without acknowledging that this stuff is complicated. This is not as easy as going to the grocery store. I was going to say go to the grocery store and buying milk, but when you go to the grocery store, there are so many different milks to choose from. You could also get overwhelmed there in theory, but it's not simple. Life is more complicated. So the idea is that financial therapists hold space for clients to sort out the feelings around money for effective and impactful outcomes. So some financial planners come from the mental health side, and they are preferable to have someone from the mental health side if certain have people's mental health diagnoses. And if somebody has a mental health diagnosis, it's possible that financial therapy fees might be covered by medical insurance, and you have to find a financial therapist in the same state. I am a financial therapist with a CFP background, and so I have more experience with the financial pieces of things, estate issues, business issues, and that kind of all those other parts. And so I have a lot of clients that are dealing with estate issues, inheriting money, or figuring out what they're going to do with their estate plans. So let's go through just quick benefits of estate planning attorneys and financial therapists working together. It helps the clients figure out their value, their values and goals, and be confident about their decisions with trusts and wills and estate planning. Get them unstuck, avoid infighting, and implementing a plan. I mean, for example, right now I have someone who's trying to figure out something, who the right person is to do a special needs trust. So she wants me to be in with her to just explain, or things come up, like I can come in and hold the person's hand fully through that as an extra person as support. I also, when it comes to estate planning, people are figuring out what they're trying to choose to do with their plan, to try to, again, create something that ideally doesn't have as much infighting, hopefully there's none. But having your clients feel understood by someone who just wants to listen to them, listen to them go deeper into where do they come from. That's what a financial therapist can do to help. It also can help people not overspend or underspend, because you see people who inherit money and they either are, actually, Eli and I are going to stop sharing for a second. We're talking about this earlier, that people either sometimes can get frozen, that they got this money, parent died, and they're like, I can't touch it. And I help people with this. This is death money. I can't take it. And so I help people work through that as thinking, what would your parent want? Like, how can you use that money to live your best life, your rich life, your amazing life? And your rich life, I think that's a quote from Ramit Sethi in his new book, Couples and Money. He has a whole quiz sort of thing of helping people start to visualize their individual rich life. Because the reality is, I was saying before to Eli, like my vision of my rich life and Eli's vision of his rich life, and each of your individual visions are going to be different, and so are all of your clients. So it's important to try to get to the point of saying, this money is here. Let's work around the grief. Like they have a grief veil around the money. Sometimes people have this veil that they have a messaging, well, I have to get rid of it as soon as possible. But then they've blown the money, and this was their chance. And especially people in their 20s and young adults don't understand how hard it is to earn that money. So working with them on the emotional side of how can you make it so that the money is used in a way that's going to support them, and their charitable inclinations. So kind of, Eli, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, and I'm going to put a link to the book in the chat. My question is, Elana, like, how would you start with that conversation, and especially from the lens of you as a certified grief counselor? Did you say you're a grief specialist? I forget the designation. How do you bring that in to help that client re-engage with those funds in a way that is productive?
So what is my process on let me just make sure I paraphrase and got this right.
Yes.
How do I help clients who are frozen, have this, like, I just inherited X million from parent who just died and I cannot even look at that? So there's a number of different pieces of it, I would say, and each one is different. And we were talking, Eli and I were chatting earlier about everyone's at a different path and pace. And while we are all here and we all have eyes and noses and mouths and everything else, we are all different. Everybody's different in how they feel about things. So I would start usually by, I have a whole process I work with clients through. I start by having them do pre-work and take a test called the Colby A, and sort of talk about how are they naturally wired. And we work through that. Like, that's my first session. Typically the second session, we're not even talking about money at this point, really. We're working on who they are. Second session, we tend to get into family tree around money. What's going on with the family tree around money, getting into their values, understanding what their values are. And then by the time we go through there, we've gotten to know their parents, their grandparents, more about what their part of life is. getting into their money scripts, their subconscious messaging around money, we can start to get deeper into what's happening with the grief, what's starting there, what is meaningful to their world and their relationship with their parents.
Awesome. Thank you, Alana. That sounds really great. And could you talk a bit more about the Colby? I think I just learned about that from you. It's kind of been showing up in my life in different ways, but it seems like a really powerful tool. Give us a bit of a background on the Colby.
Well, I like the Colby's test because it was actually invented by the daughter of the person who invented the IQ test. She said, Dad, there are intelligences that are beyond beyond the IQ test. And he said, go make a test. So she did. So it goes through 4 different areas, and this doesn't have, I wonder if it can have results. This doesn't have a result. So maybe we can pull up a sample one, or I could pull up a sample one. It would take me a minute, but it goes through 4 different areas. I don't know if the assessments or if there's a sample. So within the test, it tells you how you are if you are in your energetic spot around 4 different areas. And do you want me to go pull up a test? It would take me a moment. I can't hear you. You're muted, Eli. I'll just keep going. So
I can find it and then just go ahead and talk
if you find a sample test of the 4 different
I'll pull it up.
that'd be
I'll pull
great.
it up.
So in these 4 different areas, we are each wired to get energy from things being structured a certain way. And unfortunately, it may not be the way you want to be structured, I should say. So for example, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much research do you like to do? And a lot of lawyers typically are like an 8. They really like to go in and research because that gives you energy. So if you're doing something when you're not able to research things to the level of your being happy, you're just not going to be happy, I guess, is basically what I would say. If you are not able to do that, and understanding that other people, if they were forced to research, you may have a kid or know another person to research things to the level of depth that gives you energy, they're going to be drained. We can only maintain so much time doing something in a way that doesn't give us energy, and then it takes time to regroup. Another area is how much structure do you naturally put onto things, including how much structure do you like in your daily life. And that's again on a scale of 1 to 10. If you naturally create more structure, you like to get up and you like things to go along the way they've always been. Let's see, Eli may have a picture for us. Yeah, any of those are fine. Actually, tell you what, but it would be better is there's one that's the row 2. Yeah, that one right there with that has the big long red one there. That would be I want to touch that one right there. Yeah, click on that one. That one's a good one. Yeah, click on that one. So the reason for that one is, okay, let's say you're a lawyer. That would mean you like to research things. And if you're a lawyer or you have or you're in a field, an engineer, you like to do a lot of research. That also means when it goes to making a financial decision, you may research the heck out of something and get stuck in the research area and be unable to make it, be like, okay, how much is enough research? That becomes challenging. You're also then dealing with other people, could be an employee or it could be, clients, and they're lower than you are. So just having that understanding of you need to have things the way you like them, that gives you energy kind of thing. The second category is around structure and how much structure you naturally put on things or like in your given day. So for example, if you were lower in this number, when your clients cancel on you, you probably won't care that much. You're like, okay, I'm going to go with the flow. But if you're a higher structure number, you're going to be like, I like to have things go the way they were scheduled for the day. It's just a matter of how long it takes you to regroup. Someone who is like not a very structured person is going to be pretty darn miserable in a job that's set up with a lot of structure, and vice versa. You're not going to be energized. It's going to be hard. And when it comes to money, someone who doesn't naturally put a lot of structure in can maintain structure well. I like to help them, like business owners, find bookkeepers, find people behind them to create that structure because they can maintain it. They're just not going to create it. The next one is how much do you like to keep things exactly the same way they are versus how much do you like to how many brainstorm ideas show up in your head? And this person, for this example, like the 2, that person would like to keep things the way they are. Other people can be up as 8s and 9s, and they have so many ideas at a given time. They have to put like blinders on like a horse. And then again, they get stuck and they like, well, I could this, and this. And with finances, that gets really problematic. Get some water. And the last one is, how much in the physical world are you? Do you get energy from being in the physical world? So this person with a 2 would be like, I envision what I want to do, but I should not go in and build it. Like, should not be doing the tile on my wall, or should not actually be doing that. They could do a little bit, but they'll get drained if they spend their day building and doing things in the physical world. But the higher that number is, the more that is. And like, I have a client right now who's between deciding what to do, and because like accounting seemed like the thing that made sense and felt the rest of the way there, he is like a 6 in the hands-on stuff. So he really likes doing things with his hands. Accounting is not the place is going to give him energy. Accounting is usually a much lower kind of thing. So adjusting of saying, it sort of comes as a career part of this too, of do we, what do we do with that whole area?
And Elana, what are your numbers? Could you?
Oh yes, you want my numbers?
Yeah.
I am a 6-3-7-4. So on this, I like to go deep, but not super deep into the. I don't go into the weeds on the research. I'm a 3, which means I'm very entrepreneurial, and I don't mind starting up things, but I need to pull in someone behind me to put the structure afterward. And I'm very flexible actually with my clients. If they reschedule, I'm like, I'll just put something else in there. I'm a 7. I brainstorm too much, and I can get stuck in brainstorming. And I'm a 4, so I'm only partially in the. I can do something. I do enjoy some things with my hands and other parts of that. So that is me. And I have to say, I kind of would like to be like, I think in the ideal sort of image I had of who the ideal person was, I would have a lot more structure, but I would be a terrible administrative assistant. But I start up all sorts of stuff like this business, and I've done all sorts of other volunteer projects. If there's something to be started, that's me. And to then appreciate when I start up something, bringing in someone who has the structure to then stabilize it, write it up, and then hand it to the next person. So, and it's understandable.
I think I'm very similar to you when it comes to that, in the fact that I have like 1,000 ideas a minute, but I do struggle with implementation, which is why I need a really strong person. And Stephanie has been very generous to help me ground me and bring me that structure. Elana, do these things change over time? Is it like the Myers-Briggs or the things where across time you find that, there's some change, that you've grown, moved in one direction or another, or they kind of stuck based on who you are and your personality?
It's not likely to change. Your wiring is pretty well. Your wiring, as they say, if you do it at 18 or at 87, it's going to be the same. So I mean, basically the same. So that's like one of the tools. And I love this tool because it's like when I jump into started working with clients, it's a bit like going on a first date with someone. I'm not like, okay, let's take it all off and show me all your numbers, which when they go to a financial planner or whatever, they're like, okay, give it all out. They are instead, we're talking about how you are naturally wired. And I think that really, it's just a nice place to begin. And then going into their money scripts. I mean, there are these different money scripts, which I can show you some of them in the presentation, but people have these things they tell themselves about money. And I know we were talking earlier that it's something that may be from a long time ago. It may have been true, but it may not be true now. And so it's something where they decided about money, and what is true now as 2025, not a gazillion years ago. And even oftentimes people who are of all different ages. And by the way, often people ask me, okay, tell me about your clientele. Are they anything specific? I'm like, I've had people in their late 20s. I've had people, I think the oldest was 81. I've had people 6 figures in debt. And I've had people with, I think the top was like 60 million-ish. I've had a couple in that ballpark. So, but it could be higher. It doesn't really matter when we get to those numbers. It's what are we trying to solve for? And so, helping individuals, single, like everybody, all different backgrounds. And we were talking about this too before, I'm referencing that, but like I have this book that I like to reference, the ethnicity and family therapy book, because if you get people from all sorts of different countries, different backgrounds, and even within each different country, there's a variety or different backgrounds, being able to like help them understanding from their cultural background, from the trauma that might have happened in their background, and how that's affecting their current relationship with money, is something I like to help people bring awareness to. And I want to say, like, I do this just within my lane of money. So if there is sort of other bigger traumas beyond, like we're talking about money, a lot of my clients have a regular mental health practitioner that they talk to about all of those other things. So this is just about how that particular thing affects money. So I really am very into my lane of that, if you know what I mean. But the reality is that's how I'm able to really focus with them and go deep and hold their hand. It's always easy to do something with someone else.
Really, really cool. Then maybe you could talk about some of the cultural and kind of family aspects of money. Tell us a bit about that.
I think it's just such a variety of pieces that come in there. Yeah.
Just
Go ahead.
he's appreciating all the different dimensions and intersections that we're thinking through, from the very autobiographical to the international. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a little synopsis of the book here. Yeah, keep going. I'll put a link to the book as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting because you get people who've come over from a given country as a child, and what kind of things were going on in that particular, if it was a country that was in a difficult spot, what happened to them, and their awareness of what was going on with their grandparents, and then what happened with money, and then how money was spent. It becomes really important too if you see that your family of origin spent money on things that were very status oriented, then you're more likely to do that when you are an adult. We tend to replicate what our parents did, and those that felt saw their parents spend all their money, then they have a money script that money is meant to be spent. And many of them, I think people will throw people under the bus for the money is meant to be spent money script. Yet if you go down to it, if they were in a situation where they saved their money, and let's say there was an adult in the house who drank, and that adult in the house who was out of control took the money they carefully set aside and drank it, they have a reason to say, I've got this money, I better spend it now on me because I'm not going to have it later. Or they went to go buy that bike they saved up, and the money fell out of their pocket. Something happened. Now that happened then. That doesn't mean it's going to happen now. They're not in a space. Maybe they're adults. They don't live in a place. There isn't that adult parent who could take their money, or, a worry of past generations of, the banks failed in the Great Depression. These things that come through that are really hard there, of saying, okay, working through, say, okay, could anything happen? Absolutely. We have no idea what happens tomorrow. The likelihood, it's unlikely, like I can't, we all know nothing's out of the norm, but we have to live our lives in what is the most logical step to do, and helping people make a decision from their untriggered brain that's not their parent escaping from, or grandparents escaping from some very bad situation in another country. And then understanding, what are they wired to spend their money on? Also, and I was talking to someone today, and is their choice of how they're spending money what's their thought process around spending money? Is it a escapism? Is it what need do they want to be having met by buying whatever they're buying? And the reality is we have wonderful marketers in our country that's like, oh, buy this car, buy this, buy that, and you're going to feel happy, you'll feel connected, you'll be popular. The reality is, in using nonviolent communication, which is a program where you're looking at saying, what are your needs? beyond like Maslow hierarchy needs, but the need for connection, the need for appreciation, the need for love, all of these needs, the need for connection. You know, if you haven't set up a time, let's say you're feeling lonely and you want someone to need to be seen. Like I have had women who've been like, yeah, I was feeling really lonely. I travel a lot for business. So I go into a store and I try and clothes. The next thing you know, they walk out with $400 worth of clothes that they didn't necessarily need. But what they did need, they wanted to be seen and they wanted to have somebody say, you look beautiful. And so again, if we take a step back and say, how can each of those, whatever need the person has, how can that need be met without spending money? And if, you know, if it is something you're going to do, you know, could it work to schedule time with a friend? There's other things can come in that might meet that need to be seen, or, and reality is when it comes to buying items, we use 20% of what we own 80% of the time. So that other 80% is effectively unused clutter. It's not serving us. So being really clear of how do we meet our needs to feel better and happier in our spaces and in what we're doing.
I love that quote, Elana. It's stuck with me ever since I heard you say it the first time. This discussion of NVC, you know, and strategies to meet needs, right? You could spend a bunch of money on clothes or a car, or you could use strategies like being in community, or right, meditation, or going on an adventure. It brings me to this topic of internal family systems, which I recently discovered. And what I understood from it from a very high level is that there's a part of us that got trapped at a time when something bad happened, that like that you lost the money when you went to buy the bike, or maybe right, our grandparents were like my grandfather was an alcoholic, and he spent, and I think wasted a lot of his money. And so there's a part of me that is stuck in that, I think, mode, which is why sometimes I have trouble with saving. I'm gonna be really vulnerable here. So my question is, give us a little kind of maybe overview of IFS real quick, and how there's different parts of me. There's a part of me that understands this and still has a hard time reining in that part of me that, you know, I think they call them exiles, that is trying to cope with, you know, some trauma in the past. So give us a bit of an overview of IFS and how it applies to kind of money and feelings and emotions about money.
So I find that when I'm using IFS, I usually use it for a rather than going all the other pieces, for the somatic pieces of it. Of like, I have people who, like, you know, they've been like, where are you feeling the money? And I feel it in my back, feel it in our stomach, feel these other things, and then going through and helping the person get in touch with like how old they think that this part thinks it is, what the part is trying to do to help them, because these parts of us are really trying to help and protect, and trying to understand what happened. Like, what happened when you were, let's say the part thinks you're 12, and you're like, okay, what happened when you were 12? And the getting in touch with also the color, shape, like it's the whole somatic piece of this. And like I did a demo, an IFS demo with someone on finances, and she was saying her stomach like felt like there was a fire in her stomach, and we're working through this and went through, you know, how old, and I don't remember the specific trauma, but we worked through this feeling because she felt like it was consumption. And at the end, we were like, okay, so what do you want to do with what's left? And she's like, oh, there's a little coal left. I'm like, well, what do you want to do? She's like, it's nice, I'll warm my hands by it. But processing through this energy that we don't understand, so that fire that's trying to help us cope with something that happened a long time ago can be dampened. And then we can have more of the space of, you know, calm, clear clarity around making decision making. Because while that fire or the pain or whatever is going on, and it can be triggered from all sorts of different things, and that ties in actually by becoming a certified grief educator, because it could be a grief event, it could be a something that happened where an adult was pushing a kid too hard as a child and not in touch with it. The other person's like, this is too much for me. And like, no, you have to. The coach says you have to do this. well, as an adult, we understand we can push back, but as children, we're really pushed by the adults in our lives. And so understanding, how did that come in? And what was decided? And that decision can follow through of like, well, a parent wasn't giving me the attention I needed, and actually did a program with Judith Barr about money and parents and our parenting and our connection with our parents. And there's a lot that comes in if we didn't feel, people who often don't feel close to a parent will also have trouble being close to money. And so it makes a whole challenge in that of feeling like, well, I didn't deserve my parents' attention. So they have to work on that to get close to money.
You talked earlier, hi Elana, it's good
Hi.
to see you.
Good to see
You talked earlier about you do a family tree, and I'm a child therapist and I love family trees. And I think, in my own family tree, you have a grandmother who grew up in the Depression, who, worked at a very young age so that they could survive and has this scarcity mentality. And then her raising of her daughter, who then raised me, right? And Dottie, to the end, was frugal beyond belief. And I think it passes down. So I'm just curious a little bit more about the family tree that you look at and how you integrate that into things.
Yeah, so like what I do is sort of going through, I just sort of start to sketch it out here. Like, here I always put the circles are the moms. So I put your grandma here, here's your mom, and then coming down, you do down here. And starting to write those things out, even just writing out and saying, grandma, depression, the whole thing, what you just said, mom, okay, how is that impacting me? What happened with dad? So if that happened, then what happened with dad? Like grandpa, what happened to grandpa? Did they stay married?
Yeah, grandma and grandpa stayed married until he passed in his old age. And he was a little more loose with money. She was the one who was very diligent about money.
Yeah, and it's a matter of what did they each do. So you said her profession was, what did you say?
Her profession was working with him. Well, first it was taking care of the children. They had 4 of them. And this was a long time ago. And then once the kids were grown, they created a school and they worked around the world teaching people about money. Actually, he was a fundraiser. And so teaching people how to ask for money. And so he did all the speaking, she did all the organizing and planning and making sure everything happened. So
okay, so he was the speaking. I'm hearing a parallel here with the two of you, by the way.
There might be some parallels.
Yeah. So she's the organizer, he's the speaker, he's getting himself out there. She's concerned about the money because she maybe is more aware of like what are the stuff, and he's like Mr. Dynamic, like we're getting out there. I'm going to teach you how to fundraise. Mm-hmm. And so she's the grounding one in the team. Yep. And then, and she's like, this is what she's controlling the budget as to what goes to the kids. Then you didn't tell me what your mom did, but your mom.
Well, my mom was on her own with a young child at 25 and struggled, and fiercely independent and lost a lot of jobs and, had a hard time. So I grew up with a single parent who was struggling with money and when she finally had some, also careful about money. But my childhood was, do you eat or pay rent, right? Like, and so she really was very careful about money and worried about money, and I worried about money very, very young. Right. So it's no surprise that I am careful about money. Right. And don't just spend it frivolously. Right. I'm very worried and careful about money. And it makes sense. And there's times that I'm like, oh, that was so Dottie, right? Dottie is like, she recycled everything, like the styrofoam trays under meat. She recycled those and had stacks in her and gave them to the neighbor who was an art teacher to do them as like art palettes. But she recycled and reused everything from a very young age and was very, careful about things.
Dottie was grandma, right?
Yeah, Dottie is grandma.
Yeah, and so like when I do this, I would also put the dates in. And by the way, it's a great tool also just to jump at it and like glance at something. So something happened to dad, obviously your bio dad.
He left.
Okay, bio dad's gone, so he's not
Yeah.
part of them. And so if I was working with you as a client, there would also be I have a lot of clients that have bio dad is a issue. Not all, but some, there's a whole mix of things. But when I'm dealing with a client and bio dad's an issue, I am not shocked, put it that way. There's a significant percentage because that's affecting your relationship with money too.
Sure, he refused to pay child support.
Right. And he's not in your life. And was there a stepdad that showed up?
Eventually, yeah, about 8, yeah.
Okay. And so then I'd put him on the chart here.
And then there's another stepfather later.
Yeah, so you've got these different people. And so it's this whole impact of all of these people, and so stepdad 1 and 2 would have impacted you, as would, your mom, Dottie, all of these, and this dad here who's run away, and so your feeling deserving around money will tie into all of these. And then even potentially your father's parents. And this ties into what you're doing also estate planning. I mean, right? You're looking at this and then you're thinking of, okay, what happened in the past? And I've had clients where their grandma and grandpa had the business and for some reason they left it only to older brother. And then the others, or they, different, everyone has their different scenarios. You all see them too. But these things show up in later generations of, well, how did that feel? And, and coming in there. But yeah, so you, Dottie, your mom, all of this, dad, the stepdads, all of these impact your relationship with money because they were what you saw as a child.
And those early experiences really shape us. I think that we do have intrinsic ways of being, right? We have these personalities and ways that we are, but then we also learn things, and we get protective, and we hold, and we have stories that happen around what it means. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
Thank you.
stories are really important. And also, I mean, you mentioned the word frivolous, and then we get in with our clients, okay, what is frivolous? What is not frivolous? And that kind of makes it really interesting. And you see that also, I think people see that with their clients too, as to what are they spending their money on. And we all define frivolous differently. I could never X, we can insert that,
Nice. That was beautiful to see that kind of how this works in real time.
Thank you. Actually, what I do, I have this over here. I actually do it on this big.
Yeah, you need space.
Whiteboard. Yeah.
There's a big whiteboard I put on there, and I write the whole thing out. And and actually, I'm always learning from others and other pieces here because actually, like kind of in a manipulative way, I learned this thing yesterday, which was kind of neat. From someone, and I went out and I bought Play-Doh. I really went out and I bought Play-Doh, which, by the way, they had at the drugstore. But like looking at manipulatives too, of just saying like, here we have with couples, like we have 2 couples here. We have someone has met. This is orange and a greenish, and they're coming at different things. But we can use manipulatives to make it better. Like if he, for example, is like going, you're not making enough money, she may really feel flattened. And then he's going to say one thing that's going to come in and she's going to go like, she's going to go all over him and it's not working. And so how do we bring couples together around money in a loving way that, and once they come together and they're actually married, how do they blend money? How do they look at that? And once it's blended, I don't have this mixed together, but you can't extract it. You're never going to have it purely one or the other as we come together. And I'm always thinking of how to best communicate different things to different people. And we try to help people have a more, even the people who meet with me, some are married and they meet alone with me, some are married, they meet together, some are not married. I have a number of single women, probably maybe half the practice I think is single women, because they want to have someone to talk to about this stuff. Of all different ages, by the way.
Yeah, one of the leading causes of divorce, right, is money, and how people, and it's often about something deeper than that. But I see there are other questions. So.
Oh, okay, yes. You guys tell me the questions.
Yeah, so Jesse kind of was wondering whether IFS, as you spoke about it from a somatic sense, came from Susan McConnell's work.
It
Or is
actually
that,
came from Dick Schwartz's work. I don't know that
yeah,
it came
that's
from
what I
Susan
thought.
McConnell.
That's what I
I'm not,
thought.
don't believe it did come from Susan McConnell's work. I know, and there are other ways I would say, I mean, IFS is one of them. There are other ways to reach to get to that part. I think it's become very popular, but it's not the only car to get you where you want to go.
Many, many ways to get to the destination. I think Nicole looks like she has something to say or ask. No, she's like, no.
No,
She came on camera. I'm like,
I'm enjoying all the great questions everyone's coming up with. I'm like nodding and this is fantastic.
yeah. And then maybe selfishly, right, the Colby, when it comes to designing your best life, right, which everything kind of ties together, right? Someone once said to me that how you do one thing is how you do everything. Um, what are the ways we can best prepare ourselves now that we know what our pitfalls are after taking the exams? When going through the analysis, right? Okay, family tree. Okay, now that we know what the problems are, what does the implementation look like? And is there a place there for literally affirmations? A way to talk to my subconscious so that, you know, I'm not falling into the habits and patterns that that part of me that is stuck in the past is constantly pulling me into.
you know, I think it's a little bit like trying to do your estate plan on your own. I think it's hard to do on your own. Is kind of what I would say. And, you know, going through when you're working with someone else, working whether it's me or another financial therapist, they're financial therapists. There's a financial therapy association directory to go through to find who's the right person. But coming up with saying, okay, what it is that's going on. And I have, you may be the first, but I have not found the, if you ever saw Seinfeld, do you remember Serenity Now? There was a whole thing, they were screaming Serenity, and George's dad screaming. I haven't found the affirmations to work. Now, if that, again, I may not be, maybe they're not hiring me, the people who do that. What I find is that everybody has a complicated relationship with money. And what seems to work best is to start to work at that, understand that, and figure out what it is that's going to work with you for you. For example, if you are some people, someone I was talking to said she used to hyperfixate on every penny and then she avoided. And like, so there's somewhere in the middle that she needs to live to be happy, like to feel right. So where is that in the middle place for you? And then what are the steps that you are, what is that 80% of stuff that you feel crappy about yourself that you're not doing? What do you need to do so you don't feel crappy about yourself? And I mean, I get that too, by the way. Last week I was feeling like so low. There was something I just couldn't get done for my business. And I'm like, oh, and I'm like, oh, you're so, I'm going to insert bad word. Okay. And so finally it's like, it's that evening I was supposed to go to a book club and there's a new book club. I didn't wind up going. And I'm like, I said to my husband, I'm like, I can't get to this. And he's like, let's bang it out. And I tell you, after he banged that out, he just took care of whatever it was for my business. I don't even remember what it was, but it was just such a drag. Do you guys ever have those things? You know, those things that are like, I didn't get to it. I feel like it's just whatever. It's just weighing me down. Once that was released and I got the help from him, I just felt better. And so then it was something like, well, maybe I'm not so like, I personally, I like doing presentations like this. I like helping my clients. The administration of the business is not my favorite thing. So, but the bottom line is I can come in there and I can take that, help people figure out how to get rid of that weight. What is the small next step they need to do to let go of that part so that they can sleep well at night. And that's what this is all about. And then this quote, I was quoted in Real Simple about, it was called Accounting Sheep. It was very cute. And it was about financial therapy and sleep. And I said in there, which I think is really true, is if you can't sleep about night about finances, like say, don't look under the bed, look at your numbers. There's something calling to you that you're not looking at. And I think we see that with clients too. They're just things that people can't look at. And I had a client where she had inherited the money. She could not look at the money. It was with a financial advisor, thank heavens. Like literally at some point, maybe session 3 or 4, I'm like, okay, let's just put this in the simple net worth statement. And I'm like, she couldn't do it. So I put it in for her and I'm like, can you look up the last 3 numbers? She's like, I can't do it. Okay, this is like last fall. And I was like, okay, well, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. You know, you've done a lot. It was very, very stressful for her. And she afterward, she said that we talked later, and she's like, yeah, she's like, I couldn't even look at it then. I went for a long walk. I did all of these things. She had inherited money from her mom. And then we went to go and update 3 months later. Okay, there's this huge amount of stress about putting 3 numbers in. Okay, she goes, and this was like 2 weeks ago. She goes, I went to update January. I went to update February. There's a problem with this cell and cell such and such. It's not adding right. Like totally different from, I can tell you there's a problem with one of the cells on your spreadsheet to, I can't even look and put these 3 numbers in. And once that energy around that money where she's like, I can't look at it, was for my mom, was released once we worked through that. But it was like, this was over the process. I do a 3-month process with my clients. Each session's an hour and a half to 2 hours. We meet about every other week. But I do that because 1 or 2 sessions isn't going to do it. It needs to get to, the session 4 or 5 over a few months. And then kind of what you're saying, they are able to go and say, this isn't so scary, or whatever messaging they're saying. In this case, one of the cases, the person who had a father who had alcohol issues. Like, here's one example. The person had a father with alcohol issues. She often didn't feel supported. She felt criticized by him. So when I was like, can you do a money dialogue? She's like, no, it feels like I'm just writing to a vault. Like, it's not responding. It's in one way. And I was like, okay, well, let's take a step back. Like, what about if we just start by thanking money for the last trip you went on, that you were there for me? And she's like, oh, I could thank money for my last trip. It's just a completely different dynamic, but it's that parent dynamic and her mother would have approved of the trip she went on. So just saying that there's this whole dynamic we have around money, our parents, our messaging, and even going back to what Stephanie said, what is frivolous? I mean, frivolous defined by Dottie's standard, frivolous defined by our own standards. And part of it goes, all of that stuff goes by society's standards. I happen to love, my kids will quote back to me. I'm always like, what is your cost per use? So if you have a keyboard and you're typing all the time and you want to buy yourself the top of the line keyboard, that sounds like a good cost per use, But if it's something that's just going to be in that 80% of stuff you're not using, to think about that filter. That's like one of the filters that I like people to think through, is the cost per use.
I think you said something like, if that cup of coffee from Starbucks brings you joy, then
Yes.
it's worth it. So is there like a rubric for like looking at all your expenditures and saying, to rate the things that you're spending money on, and say, this gives me joy or is important to me, versus like, oh, I could probably not, I don't need the Audible subscription. That's actually, after watching her previous thing, I'm like, I can get those books from the library.
Yeah,
Overdrive for
my
free.
Libby app on my phone. I got my
Yes,
Libby app.
yes.
My Libby app. Although you have to do only 3 weeks, you get to keep them. But still, if I didn't get to it in 3 weeks, it probably wasn't meant to be. So what I like to tell people to do is consider going through your credit card statement or whatever your purchase is with a yellow, red, and a green pen, and mark it. Did this, spending that money, did that make me, you have to go through your full credit card statement, not just the summary, and say how you felt about it. And if you didn't feel good about it, feel like it's red, this is pink, but it doesn't matter what color it is, pick your colors. But that concept of, green, I spent money, I went for coffee with my friend or a networking thing, and I spent whatever I spent, and that felt good. Or you can come back and say, well, that felt like too much. You could double code it and say, like, I paid for us to go to this expensive, I did this, I paid to go to an expensive restaurant for my friend for lunch. We wound up spending more than I typically would on a lunch, but she's worth it. It was her birthday. So I would I think I would do a green yellow, because it was a ridiculous amount. I felt it was more than I would normally do, but yet I was happy because I got to spend the time with her and she felt loved, and she's going through a difficult time. So we all have these things. How do we rank them? But just giving yourself the minute to say the awareness of, or your clients too, as they're looking at this. And some clients are like, yay, I get to spend X $1,000 on my estate plan. And others are like, gosh, I wish it was, they feel like that's too much. And we all look at those different things, but having a solid estate plan is is essential. And you all know that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Nicole agrees because that's what she does. She's an estate planning attorney. So this is so amazing. Elana, how can people get in touch with you? What do your engagements look like? If they want to possibly work with you, and engage you.
So, I sometimes change my rates, so I'm not sort of saying, can say what the rate is a ballpark, but I'll tell you what they are at the moment. I do a 3-month program, and it's 2 sessions a month. I said the sessions are an hour and a half to 2 hours. For individuals, it's a total of $3,900 billed at $1,300 a month. And for couples, it's $4,200 billed at $1,400 a month. Then that also allows if people are emailing me in between sessions, like it's a set package. I didn't want people going, oh my gosh, we're counting the minutes. It just, for what I do, this works for me. People seem happy with it. If it happens to be that, say that someone's like, oh, we're starting in March and April and someone's going traveling in May, I just move it forward, that kind of piece. So I keep it simple. It's simple. I like simple. I like simple round numbers. By the way, I just would say also that if someone has their own business, they can take my expenses and see if they count as a business expense, because it's financial coaching / therapy. So as for the financial coaching component, they can do that. And they can find me here, just pick a time. And if any of you want to chat also, okay, my website is not, here's my website. It's real simple to pick a time to chat right here on my website. It's Oak Financial Coaching. And we can send that later. And if anyone wants to go through there, certain weeks are busier than others. So I don't know if you all find that with your own businesses too, but like this week is crazy busy and next week is like the moment.
Absolutely.
So it's just like, it just happens that way. And right, suddenly I have a bunch of people that want to, it's cyclical in what I do. March seems to be, for some reason, people want to come into it and coming in also saying, do you have, coming after the holidays, I think January is hard. People blew their cash on Christmas and traveling or winter break and Hanukkah or whatever, Kwanzaa and all the other holidays. So kind of coming in there. So yeah, just people find their spot and pick a spot in there. And my website, if you do have a client that you think could benefit from this, I would encourage you to just pull up my website and talk to them and say, you know what, I met this woman, Elana, she does financial therapy. She loves estate planning. By the way, when I was at Schwab, I even loved it. I was the estate planning specialist at Schwab in Menlo Park back in the 90s. They offered me to go to be the trust specialist in headquarters in San Francisco. And I decided I didn't want to do that. I was very incredibly honored, but it's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to San Francisco. I live in Sunnyvale, but I have clients all over right now. Everyone's is in the United States, but the goal is to get people from avoidant to empowered.
Love it. Love it. Elana, thank you so much for spending time with us, for sharing all these amazing insights and wisdom. We'll definitely package this up into a nice video and email it to everybody who registered. I think we had 33 plus people who registered, so they'll all get to watch. And we'll include all your links so they can reach out to you. Very grateful for you being our first speaker for the TBN Speaker Series for Trusted Advisors. Looking forward to another session in next month in April, the first Wednesday at noon. We'll let everyone know how to register. Thank you again, Elana.
Thank you so much.
Can't wait to do another session with you. This is just the first of, I think, many discussions because there's so much to unpack here. This is such a big topic, but very, very grateful. And thank you, Nicole, for coming and supporting us, and Angelica as well. We'll definitely see you again soon, next month.
Thank you for watching the Best Notary Speaker Series. Come join us on Zoom every Wednesday of the month at noon Pacific and 3 p.m. Eastern. Join us on June 4th for our next event, Mastering Your Inbox with Art, with highly acclaimed productivity expert Sarah Tetlow. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notified when new episodes are released. This speaker series is sponsored by The Best Notary, your trusted document concierge from Maui to Maine.